Okay, we're going to start on the tender and put a light in there, and there's a bit of trick to how we're going to run the wires to the coder, which is going to be in the loco. I'll show you that in a moment. So the tender's just been pulled apart. It's only 4 screws. I'm not going to go into that part of it. Got a lead tester there. We're going to use that to just check the lead that's going to go into the lamp at the back. I buy my LEDs, brights, whites, goldens, reds, all sorts of surface mount LEDs that I've got in there that I buy by the 1,000. The coder wire, I use TCS and ESU. TCS of course you get from them, and the ESU wire I get from Gary Polino at Train Tech in the USA Eastern States. And I've got another box set I just throw my offcuts into. Okay, I pulled out a 0603 lead, a warm golden white. We'll just test him. Come here. Trying to work around the camera. So there it is there. So that's going to go into the tender. Now I use Hobby King wire. It's a very flexible wire, 38 gauge. You Google Hobby King, you'll find it in their wire section. I like it because it's got better insulation. Magnet wire, you get this from engineering. That's fine, but it can scrape off and cause problems later on with movement. So I prefer using the Hobby King wire. So what we're going to do, we'll solder some of this Hobby King wire on. I'll show you how that's done. Okay, for soldering surface mount LEDs, I'm setting the temperature to 250 Celsius. That's why it's important having this up and down temperature control. I'll be using a pair of tweezers here that I've mounted in a little homemade box, so I can pick up the lead and hold it in between those. Now what I've done with those is I've chamfered those so that it gets a good grip on the resin light package of the surface mount LED. The other thing which I'm using, the solder that I use, it's a 6040 tin, and it's 0.7mm diameter. And I use Cars fluxes. They're liquid fluxes, and I just paint those on, and that takes any oxidization off the little solder pads on the surface mount LED and any other areas that I need to do get a really good tin job. So it's handy having several of those. They're available from International Hobbies in California that I know of for you American chaps. Okay, I cut a couple of pieces of the Hobby King 38 gauge wire off. Now these are like sprue cutters, so I just trim the end going back about a 1/16 of an inch, and that's ready to be tinned. Always tin both. I've still got the temperature at 250, yeah, so that one's tinned. Okay, I've got the surface mount LED in there. I've put some flux on there just to take any oxidization off the solder pads. Now with a little bit of solder on the iron, quickly tin each side of the pad. I'm going to work around the camera here, and I go across get the wire on. Okay, I've tinned the next wire, and we'll just go and put this one on. There we go. So there's both wires. Just got to be quick Don't get too much heat, otherwise you'll burn the lead and it won't work. Now we'll tin the other ends and we'll give it a test. Okay, now we test it, and there's the glow. So you see that's nice golden colour. Okay, here's our lead that we've just soldered together, and you see I've run the wires down the back across. I get maximum contact of the wire across the back of the solder pads on the lead from this little sketch I've made. Now what we're going to do there now, because those solder pads could come in contact with the metal rear lamp on the tender, I've cut a little piece of paper, or it's very thin cardboard, and we're going to glue that onto it and then thread the wires down, and that will act as an insulator between the metal of the body and the solder pads, so we won't get a short or burn the lead out. Now I'll put some super glue on the back of the lead across the solder pads, and also onto this little bit of paper, thin cardboard, and we're just going to put that in the middle. Let it line up. Oh, she's grabbing. Just quickly adjust it. Get in the centre. Okay. Now we let that dry. Okay. I'll put some Arlene's super tacky glue onto the back of the white paper, and now we can put it in. There's the lead in there now. Now I put a bit more glue around the piece of heat shrink tube and just made it so that it's going to hold the wires in there, and when these wires get pulled at all, it's not going to pull the lead out. And the next part, more glue, and just run that around the edge there. This will dry clear, of course. And we put the lens back in. And we just let that glue dry. I got this Loco second hand, so I've taken out the speaker that the previous owner had, and I'm going to solder in a resistor onto this. With leads it's like anode and cathode, so you got a positive and a negative, so you can't go too wrong. I always go to the negative, to the cathode, and solder a resistor in. And I'm only going to use one wire. So we've got the yellow wire, which is the of course the rear lamp. So I'm going to run one yellow wire, and I'm going to use track power from one side for the other here. So I've put a piece of brass shim here, and with the screw, and there's the wire running up to the lead. So that's one power source, and then the other one, which is going to be from the decoder turning things on and off, will be, this will go to the yellow. And of course I always put a piece of heat shrink over, so that's ready to go. Now we can check how we're going to go here. I've just got my NCE power cab here, which I do my bench testing with. So I've connected the DCC one lead there, and the other lead there. We should get the light on. There we go. So we now got the light on. And there you go. Take it off. Okay. Now rather than running a yellow wire It's got to go between the tender and the loco. I use a black wire. I use yellow heat shrink so I can identify which wire it is. Now we run him on there using a pair of locking tweezers. That was handy to have. And then we're up. Run the iron over the back and shrink it. I don't need to use heat guns or anything, that's just going crazy, you don't need them. Now just lock that resistor in there and seal it up so that no wires are going to touch. So I now know that that's the yellow wire, and I only need to have one pin between it and the loco. Okay, what I'm going to do there now is I'll cut some heat shrink to run over that tube, put a bit of glue on it. I'm going to work around the camera again, and we'll just put that onto the side down there, hold it for, and that's just going to allow the wire to run through it. Okay, there's that one done. Now we've just got to feed the wire through. Down here, this is just to keep the wire clear of the trucks turning. Just leave that there. Okay, now here's an important tip. These are the connector pins that's going to run the one yellow wire. It's going to back to the lead. Remember, the other power source is going to come from the trucks, from the rail directly. We don't need to go through the decoder, so which would be the common blue wire. So we're just going to use track power. Now, let's say that that pin here, which is the female, was a male. If that was to drop out of the loco and touch the track, kaboom, no good. So by having that one as a female coming out of the locomotive and a male from the tender coming in, we're not going to have any problems. If the wires, when connecting it up on the track, you had live power, you're not going to have a short. So that one's the female that goes to the loco, and that one's the male that's coming off the tender. It's going to go to the decoder yellow wire. And you can see I've cut a couple of pieces of heat shrink here, two different sizes. I've got to go over this pin. So the small one will fit over when I solder the wire on and seal, and then I'll put the larger one over the body, this black plastic body there. Let's see how we go here. Give it a solder on and put the pin on. Oh, working around the camera. Okay, so there's one. Slide him up, hold him down, clean the tip, and shrink him on. Now we fit this filler over both. Grab them again, locking pliers and tweezers. Okay, here we go. Make a neat job of it. Remember, this is the only wire that's going to come out of the tender. So it's not going to look too bad between the loco and the tender. Here we go. Nice neat job. That's not going to come adrift. Okay, there's the tender all back together. There's a simple lead tester that I've got here. Just a lead with a resistor on it. We pop her on the track and we see the light comes on. It's going to be the same principle as what we're doing in there, except instead of this rail where this resistor's touching, we've got the Dakota yellow wire feeding it. Now if I move up here and I put the yellow wire, this connector pin on, we should have a light. There we go. So there's the rear light, and that's all I'm doing there. Just putting this this pin that we had is going onto the track to get the light on.